Hey everyone, today's 3 stories are sent in by listeners just like you. The first takes us to Yellowstone National Park, where a camper has the most terrifying night of their life, and then to the edge of a lake where something strange is gurgling under the water, and then on to hunting season and what a hunter finds scattered on his land. What happens in these stories is sure to keep you second guessing about spending time in the great outdoors. Before we get into the stories, I'm excited to announce the release of dreadsarmy.com, where I release strange and weird news every single day. I also post all of my stories there too. And if you want to be a part of the conversation, join the Facebook group. Links below. Now let's get into the stories. Hi Lilith. My name that I'm going to give you here is Jeremy. And the events I'm about to share with you happened to me in Yellowstone National Park in 2011. I guess you could call this story top secret. And when I say that, I mean that someone knows the truth, but they're not talking about it. There's definitely something going on in Yellowstone, more than what people are saying. I just know it, and here's why. Yellowstone's not only one of the most visited parks in America, its raw beauty is undoubtedly what makes it so appealing. However, that rawness is also dangerous, and there are many things that Yellowstone doesn't tell you about itself. I personally feel that it hides dark secrets, including disappearances that have yet to be explained. I've also heard that multiple people have had sightings of alleged wild creatures that some believe inhabit the park, and now I believe I've seen one too. Those who have come close enough to smell the creature say it smells something like roadkill mixed with ammonia, and that it is very predatory. Some people have even suggested that this could secretly be why Yellowstone's mascot is a wolf, as a nod to the fact that the park seems to be infested with creatures that are mutations or crossbreeds of other animals. But no one can really prove that. The park is massively huge and literally has areas that haven't been seen by humans much. It also has many open areas that are perfect for hikers, campers, and sightseers. But Yellowstone also has more of something many other parks don't, and that is the unexplained. The truth is that Yellowstone has had numerous reports of missing people over the years, some even disappearing without a trace. Some people have even claimed to see a creature in the days before people go missing. Could the park really contain these creatures? So I visited Yellowstone one summer on a solo camping trip to see its natural beauty. It's truly a magnificent place, but there is this unexplainable undercurrent to it. I had visited Yellowstone before, so I knew the rules. Stay on the trails or else you could get fined. Don't go alone at night or you might encounter something life-threatening. Anyway, I set up camp at Canyon Campground in the north part of the park. The place was beautiful, and the amenities are great. However, I don't know if it was smart, but the place must have enchanted me or something because I ended up going off on a nearby trail at night when the darkness set in. I thought I was being smart because I told myself I would just stay close to the camping area, but I didn't. And it was when I went a bit off trail that I saw something that will forever haunt me. An odd-looking creature that stood about 8 feet tall. It looked at me for a moment and then ran off into the woods. It was so quick that I didn't fully process what it looked like. I just knew that it was strange and not right. I stood there second-guessing myself in the darkness. But still, I felt my heart pounding faster than ever before when suddenly I heard what sounded like a woman yelling. I thought maybe someone was just playing around, but then I heard the yell again and confirmed that it was coming from back at the camp area. I followed the sound of the voice. I ran back towards it. I instinctively thought she had also seen the thing, and I blurted out to her, "I just saw it too." She looked at me strangely, though, and started to speak, but she could barely get the words out. Her husband had gone missing. She said he had also taken off on a short walk but hadn't come back, and it had been over an hour. She was hoping that he could follow the sound of her voice as she was yelling back to camp. Now many of the campers were congregating, and I could hear some of them whispering about a creature and the legend of missing people in Yellowstone and how people have seen things that no one can explain. I could even hear that some of them were describing the exact creature that I think I saw earlier. except they had more details to describe than I saw. But at the same time, other campers were arguing that an actual cryptid creature was ridiculous. It was just a bear or a wolf. Of course, some of those same people felt that the husband had probably gotten turned around in the trees or fell and was hurt somewhere. Either way, no one knew where he was, and every second counted at that point. Right then, I felt fear like I'd never experienced before. The thing I saw felt to me like it could be dangerous. And what if that thing had something to do with her husband missing? And was it eyeing me up too when I saw it? I didn't know how to tell what I was thinking to these people without getting ridiculed. Anyway, someone must have alerted a park ranger because soon enough the rangers were on the scene and heading in the direction that the husband had gone. I managed to pull one aside and quickly tell him what I had seen. He looked at me strangely, but kept going on. The rangers seemed to be acting as if it had just been a bear and were talking about it as such, but I knew that is not what they needed to be looking for. All I kept thinking that night was that something wasn't right in Yellowstone. And then it wasn't until days later when people found what they thought to be bear prints that I started to wonder if I had actually seen the creature that had taken the man, supposedly. But there was a lot of talk in the park about a creature that seemed to be fully bipedal with matted fur, but that the fur was thicker on some areas of its body, and also the body wasn't fully covered in fur, just mostly on the head. After 3 days of searching Yellowstone, there was still no explanation as to what happened to that woman's husband. However, there were rumors that they did find his backpack, and it was mangled and looked as if he had put up a fight trying to hold on to it. There was also some blood on it, but mysteriously, the backpack disappeared from the ranger station. Now I'm wondering if they're trying to cover this up to keep the park's reputation. Maybe they disposed of it or hid it away so that the blood couldn't be tested. So all of this is happening, but then the strangest part of the story happened next, at least as far as I'm concerned. One of the park rangers later contacted me, apparently the one I whispered to. He called me on the phone but wouldn't give the name. He said he totally believed what I saw and that they had hard evidence of the creatures in the park. He then mentioned that he wanted me to keep it a secret as much as possible, and that's why he was calling, to not talk about it any further until the creature had been found and disposed of. He said that I was one of the few people who had actually seen something that night, and that if the word got out into the world, it would be bad. And people might start to avoid Yellowstone, which would mean a big money loss for the park. He also confirmed what I had been thinking, that the rangers do know exactly what I saw, and that they have been hearing about it and watching it for a while. It's never attacked anyone that they were able to prove, but they definitely wondered about many of the missing people reported over the past years, knowing that many were missing from what they had determined was the creature's territory. Lastly, he said he would forever deny saying these things to me. I agreed to keep my mouth shut about what I saw, well, at least until now, mainly because I still have more questions than answers. Is there really something out there? What were those footprints that were found? The ones they claimed looked like a bear's. And if these creatures are real, could it, or they, have taken someone else? What happened to that man who's missing? He's still never found. The creature I saw looked like something right out of a horror movie. If it took that man, there is no doubt in my mind that he isn't still alive. So I guess you could call this story top secret, and when I say that I mean that someone knows the truth, but they're not talking about it. Like I said above, there's definitely something more going on in Yellowstone than what people are saying. Hey Lilith, first, love your channel and appreciate how hard you must work daily to crank out so many awesome videos. My husband and I listen to your videos every morning with our coffee before work. There's something about people's paranormal experiences that adds some depth to the day-to-day mundane aspects of life. I personally feel that when we lose our curiosity for what's out there, we lose our childlike joy of life. So thank you for providing us with so much joy, even though some of the stories you share are absolutely terrifying. I want to talk to you about something I saw as a kid. My parents had a ranch-style house on about 50 acres. Looking back, I have so many fond memories of the place. Nowadays, kids grow up with iPads and a lack of a sense of adventure. When I was a kid, every day was an adventure, exploring our property and all the wildlife. A lot of the land consisted of this massive lake that stretched out as far as I could see. My fondest memories are of swimming in the lake, running around the fields, exploring the forests, and then jumping back in the lake. Good times. Several times, however, I experienced some horrible things on that property. On one occasion, I had what I can only describe as a paranormal experience. There was this boat ramp that I loved to play at that was rarely used. There was a picnic table close to it, and I used to just spend all day running down the ramp, getting wet, then laying and drying off on the picnic table. There were all kinds of turtles, fish, and other wildlife that would just hang around. But on this day, there were no animals around at all. The lake was as quiet as I ever remembered it being, and I was just doing my thing. I remember I was laying on the picnic table getting some sun when I heard this weird gurgling noise coming from the water. It was almost as if someone was drowning in the lake. I ran over to the boat ramp, looked out to the water to see if I could see if turtles were fighting or whatnot, but there was nothing there, and then the noise stopped. I went back to the picnic table and I laid down, but then I heard the noise again. I looked around, but I didn't see anything. There was silence again, so I closed my eyes to relax, and then I heard the gurgling again, but it sounded aggressive, more aggressive than before. It was like something was in the water growling at me. I didn't see anything, but I was freaked out enough to run home. I told my parents about it. They told me I did the right thing by leaving, but that was it. A couple of hours later, I decided to head back down to the picnic table to watch the sunset. When I was almost there and got closer, I could make out someone down there standing by the boat ramp. But I made my way down anyway. And the closer I got to the picnic table, however, something looked off about the person standing there. First, it was completely naked and gray. I jumped over into a patch of trees nearby to watch from a safe distance and slowly worked my way closer to whatever this thing was. It had scales all over its body and was just standing there looking out at the water. And then suddenly it slowly walked down the boat ramp, walked straight into the water, and completely submerged itself. I watched for a while, but it never reemerged from the water. It then clicked for me, and I wondered if that creature was the source of the aggressive gurgling noise I had heard before. It absolutely terrified me once I put that together, and I ran back to the house. When I told my parents what had happened, they seemed concerned, but didn't really give me a good explanation. However, later that night, I did overhear my dad on the phone talking to somebody and saying, "It's back again." Obviously, that disturbed me for a very long time. I remember that I barely slept that night thinking about that horrifying creature. It took me several years to even get back in that water again. I actually never returned to that boat ramp at all. I mean, seriously, what the hell could that thing be? It was standing on two legs and was taller than any full-grown man I had ever seen. I'll never forget those freaky gurgling sounds either. It was seriously like something from a horror film. The scaly body was gross, and the way it just walked into the water, never coming up for air. I still can't explain it. I didn't see the front of it, but I can only imagine what kind of gnarly fish face it must have had. What if the creature had seen me watching it? Would it have tried to eat me? Was it trying to talk to me with all those gurgling and growling noises? I've tried to research what it could have been, but the most aquatic creatures I've been able to find don't exist both in water and on land. I just see things like sea monsters, the Loch Ness Monster, giant squids, and those kinds of things. But I know I can't be the only person who has seen something like this. There's so much about our lives and the universe we live in that we don't understand. I don't know who to turn to with this. I don't know who can help me understand what I saw that day, other than maybe you, Lilith. All I know is that to this day, it's still hard for me to get into any water, especially if it's not crystal clear. Hi, Lilith. So, I've been a big follower of your channel for some time now, and I've never had any cryptid encounters myself or anything strange. That is, until last year when they opened up hunting. That's my one solace, and it was just in time for turkey season. Where I live, there are actually a few groups of turkeys traversing around the area. In fact, my area is so popular for turkey hunting that it's not uncommon that every year I have people pull up to my property and ask if they can hunt. I've really been wanting to get a big tom for some time now and hoping that this would be the year. The only issue that I have is that I haven't seen the groups of turkeys that I saw last year. And what's even more disturbing is the other day when I was walking around, I found several dead turkeys that weren't whole. I'm talking turkeys ripped to pieces. Not all of them, though. And surprisingly, some of the girls or female turkeys that I've found have had their heads completely torn off. Yesterday, about a half a mile from my house, I found a big tom that would have been perfect, but his insides had been ripped out entirely, and his neck was broken in half. It was a mess, but there was no blood. That's the weird thing. And I noticed also very large tracks around that looked to be canine. I know for a fact that we don't have wolves, only coyotes at most. Well, mountain lions, of course. The neighbors around here don't have any dogs that I'm aware of, and I've been here for years now, so I believed I would have seen them. Plus, I live on private property, so I've never seen a dog on it before. I could take a picture of the tracks because they were really large. Now, I'm not saying this is anything hokey, but from what I hear from your channel, it matches up with everything that I'm experiencing and seeing in person. Mutilated cadavers and large canine prints, it's just a red flag for me. And I've not heard a single gobble or any other sort of sign that there are live turkeys in the area. And again, this deeply disturbs me. Every May is usually full of turkeys, and there are plenty to go around, but not this year. Something has been killing them off, and there are no natural predators that I know of that would just mutilate a turkey with good meat on it and leave it with the blood drained out. Think about it. A mountain lion wouldn't just leave a cadaver like that, and a coyote? Well, the cadaver would disappear. No predator that I know of is this messy and kills just for the sake of killing. And again, I'm not saying this is definitely something cryptid or strange, but I just find it really creepy. I should reiterate that the canine tracks are enormous. I haven't measured exactly, but my whole hand can fit inside the print. There didn't look like there had been much of a struggle on the turkey's end either. And like I said, no blood. And that is strange. I've not heard anything at night or during the day that would lead me to any kind of an answer. I've not heard silence in the woods, nor have I felt anything weird or seen anything weird, like shadows darting around in the woods. But I'll just keep my eyes open and my ears open and stay attentive to my area, and I'll let you know. Let me know what you think about these stories in the comments below, and don't forget to check out Donovan Dread, who releases almost every single day. Also, if you like true crime, then check out Donovan Dread True Crime. There are new releases several times a week.